You learned how to be okay very early. Not because things were okay, but because no one asked if they weren't. You became someone who managed feelings quietly, someone who didn't want to be a burden, someone who got very good at pretending they were fine. And you still do that now. The question is, where did it start? Emotional neglect doesn't leave marks you can point to. There was no obvious event, no dramatic story, just silence where there should have been a response. You felt something and nobody reflected it back to you. You were sad and the room stayed the same. You were anxious and nobody noticed. You were proud of something and it passed without a word. Over time, your brain did what all brains do under these conditions. It adapted. It learned that emotions are private things, inconvenient things, things that are better kept small. So you shrink them. And now you carry a pattern that most people around you can't even see because you are so good at appearing whole. Here is 7 signs that this was your experience. Sign 1. You struggle to identify what you're feeling. Not in a dramatic way, more like a quiet confusion. Someone asks, "How are you feeling?" and you genuinely don't know. This is called alexithymia, a reduced ability to recognize and name your own emotions. It develops when emotional experiences are consistently unacknowledged in childhood. The brain never got to practice naming feelings out loud, so the internal vocabulary simply didn't form fully. Sign 2. You feel guilty when you have needs. You ask for help and then immediately apologize for asking. You want something and feel selfish for wanting it. This guilt is a learned response. When a child's needs are met with indifference or irritation, the child doesn't think, "My parent is failing me." The child thinks, "I am too much." That belief runs deep. Sign 3. You are extremely self-sufficient, almost to a fault. People admire how capable you are. What they don't see is why. You became capable because depending on someone felt dangerous. You learned that relying on others leads to disappointment, so your nervous system rewired itself around independence. Psychologists call this avoidant attachment, a pattern where closeness feels unsafe and self-reliance becomes armor. Sign 4. You minimize your own pain. Something hard happens and your first instinct is to downplay it. "It's not that bad. Others have it worse. I'm fine, really." This is not perspective. This is erasure. You learned to dismiss your own experience because the adults around you modeled that dismissal. What you felt was never treated as important, so you internalized the message that it isn't. Sign 5. You feel deeply lonely, even around people. This one is quiet and constant. You can be in a full room and feel completely invisible, not because people are ignoring you, but because real intimacy requires a skill, the ability to be seen. If you were never truly seen as a child, being seen as an adult feels unfamiliar, so you stay on the surface of relationships, where it's safer. Sign 6. You are hyper-aware of other people's emotions, but not your own. You can read a room instantly. You know when someone is uncomfortable before they speak. You adjust yourself to manage the feelings of others. This is called emotional hypervigilance. As a child, when your own emotions went unmet, you turned your attention outward. You learned to track the emotional climate around you as a survival strategy. The tragedy is you became fluent in everyone else's inner world while remaining a stranger to your own. Sign 7. You don't feel worthy of love unless you're being useful. When you're productive, you feel okay. When you're resting, something feels wrong. Your sense of worth became conditional early. Not explicitly, no one said, "You only matter when you contribute." But the attention you received was often tied to performance, so rest started to feel like disappearing, and disappearing felt dangerous. Here is what I want you to understand. None of this means you are broken. Every pattern you carry was a solution. Your self-sufficiency kept you functioning when no one else was holding you. Your emotional vigilance protected you in an environment that was unpredictable. Your smallness kept you from being too much trouble in a space where there wasn't room for your feelings. These were adaptations, intelligent ones. The problem isn't that you developed them. The problem is that you no longer need them, and yet they still run. Here is what happened inside the brain. The brain develops its emotional architecture in early childhood. The part responsible for emotional regulation, the prefrontal cortex, is not born mature. It grows through co-regulation. Co-regulation means a calm, attuned adult helps the child process big feelings by being present, by naming them, reflecting them, responding to them. Think of it like a mirror. When a child has a feeling and a parent reflects it back, "I see you're scared. That was frightening." The brain learns feelings are manageable, feelings pass, feelings are safe. When the mirror is absent, when the feeling is met with silence, distraction, or dismissal, the brain doesn't get that lesson. Instead, it learns feelings are dangerous, feelings overwhelm, feelings must be hidden. The stress response system, the amygdala, stays more alert. The capacity to self-soothe develops more slowly, and the emotional vocabulary simply doesn't form fully. This is not weakness. This is a brain that did exactly what it was designed to do, adapt to the environment it was given. So what do you do with this? Not a 30-day challenge, not a quick fix. Here are 5 principles grounded in how the brain actually changes. The first, name the feeling before you manage it. The brain cannot regulate an emotion it hasn't identified. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman found that simply labeling an emotion reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system. In practice, when something feels off, pause, not to fix it, just to name it. This is anxiety. This is grief. This is loneliness. That simple act begins to build the vocabulary your childhood didn't give you. The second, let yourself need things in small doses. The avoidant brain heals through incremental trust, not through forcing vulnerability, but through small, repeated experiences of asking and receiving. Ask someone for something small today, a recommendation, a favor, an opinion. Let yourself receive it without apologizing. The nervous system learns safety through experience, not understanding. The third, separate usefulness from worth. This one is slow work. Start by noticing the moments when rest makes you anxious, when you feel guilty for doing nothing. Ask, whose voice is this? Then practice resting anyway, not to enjoy it at first, just to show your nervous system that stillness is survivable. The fourth, turn the mirror inward, briefly, daily. Because you are skilled at reading others, you already have the tool, you just rarely point it at yourself. Once a day, one question. What did I actually feel today? Not what you should have felt, not what was appropriate, what you actually felt. Write it down if you can. The act of writing makes it real. It makes you a witness to yourself, which is what you needed all along. The fifth, understand that healing is not about your childhood. You cannot go back and be seen then, but you can practice being seen now, in small rooms, with safe people, one moment at a time. The brain is plastic. It continues to rewire across a lifetime. Every time you allow yourself to be known, you lay down new architecture. You are not rewriting the past. You are building something new on top of it. Here is the simple model to hold. The child who was emotionally ignored became a person who was very good at living in their own head and very cautious about living in the world. That caution made sense once. Now, the work is not to tear it down. The work is to gently expand the space around it, to let feelings exist without immediately managing them, to let people in without immediately doubting their intentions, to let yourself rest without immediately justifying your worth. Small expansions, repeated over time. That is how the architecture changes. You spent years learning how to need nothing. That took more strength than most people will ever understand. And you are still here, still trying to understand yourself, still curious about your own mind, still willing to look honestly at where you came from. That is not a small thing. The child who learned to be invisible is still in there, waiting not for applause, not for permission, but simply for someone to notice. Let that someone be you.